She was clearly lost. Standing there in that fancy downtown bistro, wrapped in a golden scarf, clutching a worn leather purse like it was all she had left, she looked around like the walls were closing in. Her lips moved fast. Desperate, panicked, the Arabic tumbling out in gasps. But nobody moved. Nobody helped. And then came his voice. You'd think a woman her age would at least know English. That was Preston Vance, the so-called genius CEO of Ellison Ridge Partners. Man never missed a chance to remind a room he'd been to Dubai once. He said it loud like he wanted people to hear. The restaurant didn't exactly stop, but it got quiet the way it does when people pretend they're not watching something ugly. I was sitting across from him. My name's Eliza Monroe, and at the time I was his head of global strategy. The only woman at his table. The only one still with her napkin in her lap. The maitre d' fumbled clearly out of his depth. The woman kept pleading. Preston stood up with a smirk. Let a man of the world handle this, he said, puffing his chest like a cartoon. He strutted over to her, and I swear to you, he started with Bonjour, madame. You tourist. I gripped my wine glass so tight I thought it'd crack. And that's when he stepped in. From the back corner, a janitor, mid-40s, maybe graying at the edges, uniform pressed, but plain, walked forward. He didn't rush. Didn't posture, just walked up to her, made eye contact, and started speaking. In perfect Arabic. The shift in her was instant. Her shoulders dropped, tears sprang up, and she clutched his arm like he was an anchor in a storm. They spoke soft, fluid human. He took the paper from her hands, wrote something on the back. Then he guided her to a seat, got her a glass of water, nodded to the hostess. And just like that, he picked up his mop and disappeared. Preston was frozen. I was not. I followed him out. You speak Arabic, I said. He didn't even turn, just nodded. Among other things. Where'd you learn University of Alexandria? I taught there for nearly a decade. You were a professor. That stopped me cold. I still am, he said in the same way a broken violin's still a violin. I asked why he was mopping floors in a high-rise full of egos. He paused, looked me in the eye. Because this job lets me be home every morning before my daughter starts her day. She needs the same lullaby her mom used to sing. And then he was gone. That night I looked him up. His name was Noah Darwish, Ph.D. in comparative linguistics. Published. Respected. Gone from academia after his wife's sudden death. No scandal, no fall from grace. Just gone. Next morning I asked to speak to him. Not summoned. Just asked. I looked you up, I said. I figured. You walked away from all of that. No, he said. Life walked away from me. I just stopped chasing. I told him about a negotiation I'd been trying to close for months, a cultural institute in Morocco. Every lawyer I'd sent had failed. I needed someone who didn't speak contracts. I needed someone who knew how to listen. Why me, he asked. Because when you spoke to her last night, I said every person in that room felt something no resume ever could. He hesitated. My daughter Amia. Crowds are hard. Change is harder. I take this job because she needs me every morning. I looked him in the eye. Then bring her. He blinked. To Morocco. She's part of your world, and I need you to help me step into someone else's. A week later, we were in Marrakesh. Amia didn't speak much. Her world was beads and patterns and silence. But there was something in her sharp, clear, unspoken that reminded me of the girl I used to be before I learned silence was safer than sincerity. Noah didn't pitch. He didn't sell. He listened. At the dinner table with the Alpha family, the guardians of the school, he didn't flash credentials. He joked with their youngest in Arabic tongue twisters. He noticed when the matriarch flinched at a mispronounced word, or when her hand rested too long on an old leather book of names. Later in private, he told her gently, "You're not guarding a business. You're guarding a graveyard." She didn't cry, but her hand trembled when she showed him the photo of her mother, the woman who'd written down the name of every girl she ever taught, even when it was illegal to teach them. That's when Yasmina, the matriarch, started listening. Back. Days passed. Then a courtyard. Children. Calligraphy drawn in water on stone. Amia wrote the word, hub, love, in Arabic with her finger in the dirt. Yasmina came over, knelt beside her, and added one tiny dot. The word became perfect. She looked up at Noah. "Your daughter carries the spirit of this place," she said. Later that night, I offered him a role director, cultural division, full authority. He refused. "I don't want a title," he said. "I want to build something that can't be bought." "A partnership," I asked. "Not in name, in risk. I don't want a salary. I want to share the weight. If it fails, I walk. But if we build something real, I want to know I didn't rent my soul. I want to know I belonged to it." I stared at him. That's not how the world works. Then maybe it's time he said the world changed, or at least the corner we're standing in. We named it the Layla Center, after his late wife. No marble plaque, no ribbon cutting, just a courtyard full of kids who used to whisper and now sang in every tongue under the sun. Amia led them quiet, steady, her feet bare, her eyes bright. One day she called me, "Mama," I cried, for the first time in 10 years. And Noah, he just whispered. She found her word. Noah had once said kindness was invisible. That day I stood beside him, hand in hand with a girl who'd once refused to be touched, and I realized he was wrong. Kindness isn't invisible. It's loud, it's permanent. It's a name written in the dirt with love. And sometimes it starts with a janitor who just stopped mopping long enough to speak the right words. So now I want to ask you, what would you have done sitting at that restaurant? Would you have watched that woman suffer in silence? Would you have mocked her accent, her fear? Or would you have stood up like Noah did? Tell me in the comments, because somewhere right now, someone is whispering a word that only you can understand. And sometimes, listening is the most powerful thing we can do. If this story stirred something in you, hit like, subscribe, and drop your truth below. Let's keep building a world where kindness doesn't need a translation. She was clearly lost, standing there in that fancy downtown bistro, wrapped in a golden scarf, clutching a worn leather purse like it was all she had left. She looked around like the walls were closing in. Her lips moved fast, desperate, panicked, the Arabic tumbling out in gasps. But nobody moved. Nobody helped. And then came his voice. You'd think a woman her age would at least know English. That was Preston Vance, the so-called genius CEO of Ellison Ridge Partners. Man never missed a chance to remind a room he'd been to Dubai once. He said it loud like he wanted people to hear. The restaurant didn't exactly stop, but it got quiet the way it does when people pretend they're not watching something ugly. I was sitting across from him. My name's Eliza Monroe, and at the time, I was his head of global strategy. The only woman at his table. The only one still with her napkin in her lap.